Hey everyone, I hope you're doing well. It is Thursday, January 19th, 2023. Here we are, the year I'm calling 7. So happy to be here again with y'all. I've missed you so much. These past few weeks for me have been such an amazing, life-altering, wow few weeks for me. I have entered into my new establishment in life, and I'm very overwhelmed and excited and just across the board emotional. It's been mind-blowing on so many levels, but I'm back and I'm very happy to be back. I'm here with Artist Dream Life Sessions, and I'm actually going to do this a little bit different than I did last year. For those of you that have been with me for a little while, you know that last year I shared a workshop in the spring of 2022, and then I spent the year sort of breaking down each of those, what I called 8 foundational pillars to building your dream life as an artist. This year I am going to break them down one by one first, and then have the workshop later on in the year so that we can all come together and just exchange and partake of one another's wisdom and experience and sufferings and joy. And this year, because it is the number 7, I decided I'm going to share 7 pillars, soul strengthening pillars to building your dream life as an artist. So we're going to go a little bit deeper here. Last year I shared on the practical ways to build your dream life as an artist, some of the tools that you can use, some of the resources you can use, and I also shared 5 essential building blocks to building your dream life as an artist. And those of you that are new, I welcome you to our YouTube channel where I have shared that in its entirety. And I'm going to share this as well on YouTube because, as we know, Instagram only lets us share a certain amount for a video. So we're going to start by me overviewing what I'm going to be sharing. And this is going to be powerful and amazing. I was laying here yesterday and the last couple of days, and I was just thinking about what I'd wanted to share for this year's workshop. And this is where I felt led. So we're going to talk about 7 pillars, and these are what they are. The first pillar, which is what I'm going to be talking about tonight, is our heart. The second is our mind. The third is our soul. The fourth is our body. The fifth is our spirit. The sixth is broken self. And the 7th, which is the number of completion, is whole self. So I am going to literally be going piece by piece and talking about each of these individually as it pertains to soul strengthening pillars, because we are human and we break down, and we need to know self well so that we can create authentically. And as many of you know, I am a huge advocate of the inner healing journey. It is something I believe in, something I practice, and something I teach through one-to-one sessions, through She's Restored, and also through group classes, which I will be relaunching this year for those of you who are interested. So we're going to go deep this year, because this year is a very profound, and I believe it's going to be a life-altering year for all of us on some level. So we're going to start with the heart. Now, the heart, it is part of the trinity of the inner self. Okay, so we are spirit, soul, and body. Many of you know this because this is what I teach. We are spirit, soul, and body, and heart. We are created in the image of God, who is 3 in 1. So he created us with 3 core essential parts of self in one person. Now, the inner self also has 3 parts. It is spirit, heart, and soul. The soul has 3 parts as well. It is mind, emotions, and will. And really, the emotions, you can sort of see that overlapping and intersecting with the heart, because that is actually where we process our emotional realm through, is our heart. So what is our heart? Our heart is the core of who we are. It is the pulse, it is the life beat of self. It is where we process life. It is where we receive and reproduce and process and multiply our life. So it's very important that we are in tune with our heart. And when I say our heart, I mean all of it. The broken side of it and the healing side of it. Now this is where it's going to start to resonate with some of us. Those of us who create from our emotional realm are feelers, okay? Some of us create from our emotions. That's sort of the foundation of how we create any medium of art. And there's others of us who are more cerebral in how we create. We are thinkers. Some of us are very deep thinkers, in fact. And that is the realm of the mind, which we're going to get into. So right away, some of this is just going to click and resonate with you. If you are a feeler and you pour from your heart when you're creating something, or even when you're receiving inspiration to create, you feel it first. Okay? So, what I want to start with is by giving you this template of function in comparison between our mind and our heart, because these are really the 2 access points of the center of self. Our mind is I want to say our mind is the central nervous system of self. And I also feel like our heart is the central nervous system of self, because they are equally vital and important for us to process life. But they have very different functions and intentions. Now, I had a teaching that I was actually reminded of this evening, which I shared on my sister channel, She's Restored. And I talked about the divine function and intent of the mind and the heart. The mind being the leader, and in essence, the male part of self, and the heart being the follower and the female part of self. Now, I liken this in my video to the dynamic and relationship between a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, how they both were created with specific functions to create and recreate and reproduce. Even if you think about the physicality of the male and the female, one was created to give and one was created to receive. So in the same way, I liken the mind and the heart to this understanding that our mind is where we process our thoughts, and our thoughts pour into our emotions, and our emotions lead us to make decisions. Now, this is the soul: mind, will, and emotions. But the heart is where we process those emotions. So when it comes to creating from this emotional realm and part of self, it's important to remember that our heart was created and designed to receive and reproduce what we receive. This is why it's vital for us to be in touch with our mental health and our emotional health, so that we can live the best life that we can. Now, we absorb and process life. Those of us who are feelers, okay? And you'll know if you are, just by what I've already shared. You'll already know that's me. Feelers absorb and process more deeply through the heart, because that is how God created you, created me. I'm a feeler too. And those of us who are thinkers, we create from our mental realm, which is the mind, because that's how God created us. That's how God created you. So where are you on these two? Or, I mean, of course you can create from both, but the tendency probably is you're a little bit more naturally flowing from one or the other. So that's important to know where you're at. Now, our heart is where we process life. I know I've already stated this, but it's important to know this because we're creating from both areas of self. We are creating from broken self and from the part of self that is learning to heal. And we want to embrace both, because that is the truest way that you can express yourself. Now, when it comes to releasing pain through your art medium, and some of us just do this naturally. Some of you are writing music or creating visuals from your broken state and your broken self naturally. And some of you are cognizant of that, and some of you are not. But what's important to remember is that we are simultaneously creating from both parts of self. Now, when you start to learn how to process pain through your art medium, it's a very powerful place to be, because you are now equipped to not only be in touch with your brokenness and release from your brokenness, but then you have the power and potential to influence and impact others who have gone through the same brokenness that you have gone through. And that is the ultimate gift, in my opinion, is to share your pain so that others can heal. Now, others of us are not exactly ready to do that. So we may feel more inclined to share from the whole side of self, which ultimately that's what we're traveling toward, is restoration. But I want to encourage you that if you do feel like, let's say you feel that, or you think that my work has to be, a finished product in a sense before I release it. It has to display my better self before I release it. That's okay too, of course. I'm just encouraging you that when it comes to expressing self from the heart, you want to remember that this is part of your reclaiming your identity, is to do this through your medium. Now, our heart is the place where we carry desires, we carry the pain of life, we carry the passion that we have for whatever it is that we're doing, or whatever it is that we love. And yes, it is obviously, the heart is the place where love abides and flows and is received and is reproduced. Now, I know love is that word hits us differently depending on what we've been through. But when I'm talking about love, I'm talking about the true love that is unconditional, that is pure, that is whole, and that is healing to us, which comes directly from God. It is the source of love, which is God Himself. But that true love, capital L, when it meets us here, what it does is it exposes what is broken and what is dark, so that we can see it and we can accept it and embrace it and process it, and in a sense let it become part of who we are, because it really is, so that we can exchange it for the dream life. And what I'm talking about here really is there are seasons in our life that we as we go through, when it comes to being in this creative space, there are seasons that we have to remember, and we have to really know and discern what season am I in when I'm creating from this space. Because just as I teach this with knowing where you are when it comes to healing in your soul realm, you have to remember that we're always on this path of restoration. From brokenness to restoration, we are constantly just on this path. But there are seasons when there are seasons where we're in the fire or we're in the trial, and these might be seasons where you don't feel inspired, you don't feel yourself, even you don't feel like creating, because you are literally in a season where you're suppressed because of what's going on in your life. Then there are other seasons where you're actually coming out of that, and you're recovery. I would call this recovery season, where you're coming out of something heavy in your life, and you're kind of trying to get your bearings back. You're still not quite inspired, but you're on your road and way to it, to being back into a space where you can be. And really, this also just depends on you individually, because you honestly can create in any season of your life. But I guess I'm saying this to encourage us that if you are right now in a season, and I'm reflecting back on some conversations that I've had with some of you about just feeling, where you're uninspired or you're feeling like the creativity's not there. A lot of times it has to do with where you are in your life, where you are mentally, emotionally, spiritually, and obviously physically, in terms of where you are in life. And this is all just part of the journey. But for the feelers, your springboard is pouring from your heart, which is where the issues of life flow from. Now, our mind and our heart must be in sync for the fullness of self to be expressed and released. And this is not an easy thing to do, or I should say, it's not an easy transition to get to, because but when you do, and let me say this as well, because this is the inspiration, when you do get to this synchronicity of heart and mind, this is where you're able to be in alignment with self completely, and you can bring out the fullness of who you are. But why is there a disconnect? Because our mind and our heart have two different functions, but they are equally important and influential to us, and how we relate to others. And this is where I get into the soul realm. That's important to understand, because as I was explaining earlier about sort of the male and female connection between mind and heart, is that the male was created to lead, protect, guide, and give. And the female is created to receive, nurture, reproduce, and also give by reproducing what is received. And this is a side note, but ladies, gentlemen, this is how it is. Now, this is how it is with the heart and mind. The mind is where we process thoughts. Now, the mind itself is very complex, which I will get into in the next video. But we have many parts of the mind, that we must also be in connection with and understand, so that we can learn how to renew our mind, how to get rid of negativity, how to process pain and release it, so that we can influence our heart in a positive way, and so that our heart and our emotions can heal. And that, of course, pours into the decisions that make up our life, because that is what our will is. It is our chooser. It is how we decide how we want to live. So, going back to the heart. Your heart is the place where everything flows out of you. And if your heart has been through a lot, let me encourage you that that is just more beauty to bestow on those who receive what you're giving. Our heart is amazing, actually. Our heart our heart can really endure a ridiculous amount of life and trial, and I'll get into this a little bit because it's Thursday, and I shared on depression earlier for Therapy Thursdays, and this is something that I will get into via She's Restored for those of you who are interested. But and this is all interconnected, and it's important, actually, and I'll probably get into it a little bit more when I talk about the mind. But when it comes to our heart, dealing with life, our heart is amazing. It is so strong, and yet so sensitive at the same time. It can endure so much, but it can also break. And we feel the pain of the heart. We can feel it, and we can feel it emotionally, we can feel it mentally, and we can feel it physically. Those of you who suffer with anxiety, which many of us do, or many of us have, I want to encourage you specifically, because anxiety creates a lot of strain on the heart. Physically, for those of you who have suffered with panic attacks or have even had heart attacks because of stress or anxiety, these are real issues that we deal with. And it's important that we are in touch with this, because this is part of healing and recovering, and embracing the pain along the way, and channeling the pain along the way to release and express who you are and what you have. And it is very powerful. I know I say this all the time, and because I truly feel this and believe this about art and music, that it really is the healing balm to humanity. And I say that a lot, and when I say that, I mean literally healing hearts and healing minds with who you are, all of yourself, your broken side and your recovering side and your whole side. All of it makes up who you are. And feelers, your heart those of you who pour from your heart, who give from your heart, who create from your heart, this year I am believing that we're going to not only transform into the better versions of who we are, the best versions of who we are, but we're going to be impacting a lot of people through what you're going to be creating. And I can't fully explain this. I am a feeler in general, even spiritually. I am a feeler. So when I sense things in the spirit, I pay attention and I don't sugarcoat it. But I am truly believing that hearts are going to be mended and healed this year, including yours and mine. So with that, I'm going to close. This is number 1, the first pillar of the 7 soul strengthening pillars to building your dream life as an artist. I hope this has blessed you. I'm going to come back next week and we're going to talk about the mind for all of our deep thinkers out there. And I know there's a lot of you. So take this week and remember that your heart is beautiful and your soul is exquisite. I love y'all, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye.